What would you do if the person who broke your heart walked back into your life, not to apologize, not to make things right, but to humiliate you in front of a room full of strangers? What if he chose the one place where you were most vulnerable, your workplace, your uniform, your livelihood, and used it like a weapon, loud enough for everyone to hear? And what if, in the very moment you were standing there absorbing that humiliation with nowhere to go and no one to turn to, a stranger walked through the door, calm, powerful, and dangerous in a way that made the entire room go quiet, and looked at the man who had just broken you down and said 4 words that nobody in that restaurant saw coming? I did not plan any of what happened next. I did not have a backup plan or a strategy or a secret strength waiting to reveal itself. I was just a woman on her 10th hour of a shift who came face to face with the worst version of her past and then watched her entire future rearrange itself in the space of 60 seconds. By the end of this story, one man would lose everything he had built. A powerful hidden enemy would be exposed. And I, the waitress who had been told she was going nowhere, would build something that was entirely, completely, and permanently mine. But I need to warn you, nothing about what happened was simple. There were moments I almost walked away. Moments I did not know who to trust. Moments when the ground shifted under me so completely that I had to decide, all over again, who I was going to be. So before we go any further, drop your city and country in the comments right now. I want to know where in the world you are watching this from. I read every single comment, and I love knowing that this story is reaching people I will never meet but somehow feel connected to. And if you are new here, please subscribe before the story is over. Because the twist that comes later, you will not want to have missed it. My name is Jade. And this is the story of the night that changed everything. The restaurant was full that Tuesday. Every table was taken, the bar was 3 people deep, and the kitchen had been behind since 7 o'clock. I had been on shift since noon. My feet were throbbing inside my black work shoes, and the smile I wore for customers had long stopped reaching my eyes. But I kept moving, kept refilling glasses, kept saying of course and right away and no problem at all, because that was my job and I was good at it. I was balancing 4 plates on my way to table 9 when I heard the door open behind me. I did not turn around. I never turned around mid-carry. I set the plates down, smiled at the family, recited the specials, and only then looked toward the entrance. My stomach dropped straight to the floor. Kevin Marsh walked in like he owned the room. Tall, dressed in a gray blazer, laughing at something the man beside him said. He had 4 people with him, 2 couples, all of them polished and loud. He had not changed. Same confident walk. Same easy smile. Same ability to fill a space and make everyone else feel smaller without even trying. We had dated for 2 years. He had ended it 8 months ago with a single sentence. You're a great girl, Jade, but I need someone going somewhere. I told myself every morning that I was over it. I was not over it. I turned away and moved toward the kitchen, hoping he had not seen me. I was almost at the door when his voice cut through the noise of the restaurant like a knife through still water. Jade. I stopped. Turned slowly. He was looking at me with something close to amusement. Like running into me here, in my uniform, with my notepad tucked into my apron, was the punchline to a joke he had always suspected was coming. Still here, he said. Not a question. A conclusion. Still here, I agreed. My voice came out steady. I was proud of that one small thing. We'll take a table, he said, already looking away. Somewhere nice. Not too close to the kitchen. He said it like I was a stranger. Like 2 years meant nothing at all. I led them to table 6, handed out menus with hands that did not shake, and walked away telling myself it would be fine. 1 table. 1 hour. I could survive 1 hour. I was wrong. For the first 20 minutes, I avoided table 6 entirely. I sent my colleague Priya with their drinks order. I stayed on the far side of the restaurant. Then Priya found me at the service station, her expression tight. Table 6 is asking for you specifically. The man in the gray jacket said, and I am quoting, "Send our original waitress." My jaw tightened. I picked up my notepad and walked over. Kevin looked up as I approached and leaned back in his chair with the satisfaction of a man who had arranged something. "There she is," he said to his table, loud enough for the group beside them to hear. "This is Jade. We dated for a couple of years. Isn't that something?" Nobody laughed. But nobody told him to stop either. "What can I get for you?" I asked flatly. "She was always so serious," Kevin continued, still performing. "No real ambition, but very serious about the small things." He tapped the menu. "I'll have the steak. Medium rare. And tell the kitchen not to rush, good food takes time, unlike some careers." The table went quiet. His girlfriend shifted in her seat. I wrote down every order, slowly and clearly. Then I looked up. "I'll have that in for you shortly." I turned to walk away. And that was when he said it. Louder this time. Aimed at the whole room. "This is exactly why I ended it, honestly. Some people are just built for this, taking orders. Nothing wrong with it. It's just not what I needed." The restaurant went quiet. Not completely, music still played, glasses still clinked, but the tables nearest to us had gone still. Phones were being lifted. Eyes were on my back. Heat rose to my face. I stopped walking. Stood completely still with my notepad in my hand and nowhere to go. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, measured, and purposeful. Coming from the direction of the entrance. And a voice slow, perfectly calm, that somehow reached every corner of the room without being raised at all. "Who said that?" I turned around slowly. He had come in without me noticing, which I later learned was something he was very good at. He stood near the entrance, tall, dressed in a black suit that looked like it had been cut specifically for his body. Sharp features. Eyes that were completely still and gave nothing away. Behind him, 2 men in dark jackets stood just inside the door. Nobody had seen them arrive either. The restaurant manager, Mr. Bello, appeared from the back room moving faster than I had ever seen him move in 2 years. The head waiter rerouted himself across the floor mid-step. I did not understand the reaction yet. I would understand it soon. The man in the black suit was not looking at me. He was looking past me at Kevin's table with an expression that was not angry, and that somehow made it more frightening. Anger you can argue with. What was on his face was quieter than anger and far more serious. Kevin set down his wine glass. Some of the confidence had slipped. "Can I help you?" Kevin said. The man walked forward slowly. He stopped beside me close enough that I could have touched his sleeve, and looked at Kevin with those still, dark eyes. "I heard what you just said," he replied. His English was perfect, barely accented. "I am giving you the opportunity to explain it." Kevin's jaw tightened. "This is a private conversation between me and a what?" the man said. Just 2 words. Kevin did not finish the sentence. Mr. Bello appeared at the man's elbow, practically wringing his hands. "Mr. Hahn, sir, welcome. Your usual table is ready immediately. The best in the house." In a moment, Mr. Hahn said, without looking at the manager. He turned to me. For the first time I saw his face clearly, something in his expression that was not pity. Steadier than pity. More like recognition. "Are you all right?" he asked. I opened my mouth. I had been trained by 8 months of difficult living to say that I was fine. The word was already forming. He turned back to the room before I could speak, to all the watching faces, the held breaths, the phones that had been lifted. And he said, in a voice that was perfectly calm and somehow filled every space in that restaurant, "My wife should not be taking anyone's order tonight." The room went completely silent. I had never seen this man before in my life. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Not Kevin, not his girlfriend, not the other diners, not me. We all stood inside those 4 words like they were walls that had appeared from nowhere. Then Kevin laughed. Short, uncertain, the laugh of someone deciding whether they had heard correctly. "Your wife." The man, Mr. Hahn, the manager had called him, did not repeat himself. He held Kevin's gaze until Kevin looked away first. It happened faster than I expected. Mr. Bello reappeared, gesturing anxiously toward the far end of the restaurant. Mr. Hahn glanced at me. "Come." It was not exactly a command. It was the kind of sentence that assumed you would do the sensible thing. I followed him. I do not fully know why. Maybe my legs were moving before my brain caught up. Maybe because anything felt better than standing in that silence with Kevin's words still hanging in the air. Maybe because something in this stranger's steadiness made me feel, for the first time in a long time, that someone had chosen to stand on my side. We sat at a corner table by the window, far from Kevin, partially screened by a tall plant. Mr. Bello hovered, then retreated. The 2 men in dark jackets positioned themselves at a respectful distance. "I apologize," Mr. Hahn said. His voice was quieter here. Less of a statement, more like a conversation. I acted without thinking. When I heard what he said, I should not have put you in that position without asking. I stared at him. "You just called me your wife?" "Yes." "In front of a room full of people?" "Yes." "Why?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because he needed to believe it. And because you deserved to walk away from that table with your head up." He looked at me directly. "I had a reason for being here tonight that has nothing to do with you." But when I walked in and heard what he said, he paused. "That man. Do you know who he works for?" I blinked. "Kevin? He works in finance. Corporate something." Mr. Hahn placed a business card on the table between us. "He works for me." His name was Nathan Hahn. The card said Hahn Group, chairman, and nothing else. He explained it clearly and without rushing, the way someone explains a problem they have been carrying for a long time. Kevin Marsh had been a senior analyst in Nathan's finance division for 3 years. For the past 9 months, money had been moving through the company, small amounts at first, then much larger ones through a web of accounts that had taken Nathan's team months to begin untangling. The trail kept returning to Kevin. But the evidence was not complete. There was a missing piece. 6 weeks ago, Kevin had sat alone in this restaurant, table 6, the same one he had occupied tonight, and made a phone call during a slow Tuesday afternoon. He had spoken to someone about account numbers, a wire transfer, and a company name Nathan's team had never encountered before. A waitress had refilled his water glass twice during that call. Nathan had reviewed the security footage. That waitress was me. "I don't remember anything specific," I said carefully. "I refill 100 glasses a week." "I know," Nathan said. "But you were there. Your memory recorded it even if you weren't consciously listening. What you remember, even fragments, could complete the evidence we need." I sat back, my mind working fast. "You came here tonight because of that footage." "Because of me?" "Yes." The wife comment was impulsive, he said. "I saw him, heard what he was doing, and I acted before I thought it through." He paused. "I am not usually impulsive." "What do you actually want from me?" I asked. "A choice," he said. "A real one with full information and no pressure either way." I crossed my arms. "I'm listening." He needed someone Kevin trusted. Someone Kevin underestimated. There was nobody on earth Kevin underestimated more than me, and if I was willing, that became my advantage. For 30 days, across 3 high-profile public events where Kevin would be present, I would appear as Nathan's wife. Not permanently, not to deceive a court, but to place me in rooms where Kevin would be off guard, where he would speak freely without realizing I was gathering information. In return, legal protection, financial compensation, and a guarantee that Kevin would face full consequences for the fraud and for what he had said tonight. And if I say no? I asked. You go back to your shift, I apologize again, and I find another way. Simple. No pressure in his voice at all. Nobody had offered me a real choice in a long time. I thought about Kevin's face. The performance of it. The way he had used my life as a punchline for a table of strangers he was trying to impress. I thought about 2 years and the sentence that had ended them. I looked at Nathan Hahn across the table. I have conditions, I said. Something shifted in his expression. Not a smile, but the beginning of one. Name them. No lying to me after tonight. Full information, always. Agreed. My sister stays completely out of this. Of course. And when this is over, whatever happens with Kevin is legal. Nothing else. That was always the plan. I took a breath. Then yes, I said. I'll do it. The next 2 days were unlike anything I had experienced. Nathan arranged a guest apartment, clean, quiet, in a building I could not have afforded in 3 years of saving. His team arrived the following morning. The woman who led them was called Sarah, small, precise, and terrifying within 30 seconds. She was introduced as a presentation consultant, which turned out to mean she was responsible for teaching me how to exist in a world I had never been part of. The clothes were extraordinary. But Sarah made it clear on the first morning that clothes were the least important part. Expensive things on someone who shrinks, she told me, standing behind me at the mirror, are just expensive things. Stop shrinking. I'm not shrinking, I said. You apologized for sitting down, she replied. You apologized to the chair. She was not wrong. By the end of day 2, I was exhausted in a way that was different from restaurant work, deeper, more concentrated. But something else was happening underneath the tiredness. Something I had not felt in a very long time. Not confidence, exactly. More like the earliest edge of it. Like a door I did not know existed was standing slightly open. That evening, I overheard Sarah on a call in the next room. Better than expected, she was saying quietly. Natural. She just doesn't know it yet. I stood very still in the hallway. Yes, she'll be ready. I went to my room and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, wondering who she had been reporting to and whether ready meant what I hoped, or something else entirely. The first event was a charity gala on a Friday evening. 500 guests, a ballroom in a hotel I had walked past many times without ever imagining going inside, and a level of quiet money that I had only ever seen from the outside looking in. I wore a dark green dress that Sarah had chosen. Nathan met me in the lobby and offered his arm without comment. We walked in together and I watched, tried not to be obvious about it, as the room shifted slightly when he entered. Not dramatically. Just a small, quiet rearrangement of attention, the way a room does when someone important arrives without announcing it. Kevin was there. I spotted him 20 minutes in, near the drinks table with a woman I did not recognize. The moment he saw me, really saw me, registered who I was and where I was standing and whose arm I was on, his face moved through several expressions quickly. I memorized every one. Nathan leaned down and said quietly into my ear, "He's already making calls." Good. The evening went smoothly for 2 hours. Then I went to the restroom and found I was not alone. A woman stood at the mirror when I entered and turned as I came in. She was striking, clearly intelligent, with watchful eyes, already running an assessment. I recognized her after a moment, Kevin's girlfriend. The one in the cream blouse from the restaurant. "You're Nathan Hahn's wife," she said. Friendly voice. Careful eyes. "I am," I said. "I'm Clara. Kevin's girlfriend." She paused, just a beat too long. "I knew your mother, actually. Years ago. She worked at the Meridian Hotel, didn't she? Housekeeping." I held her gaze in the mirror. She did. "Hard worker," Clara said pleasantly. "I really do admire that." She picked up her bag slowly. "I'd be careful, though. Nathan Hahn doesn't protect people, in my experience. He uses them." She smiled. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." She left. I stood at the mirror for a moment, breathing slowly. Then I walked back to Nathan's side and said nothing. But I was watching him differently now. That night I could not sleep. I lay in the guest apartment with Clara's words turning over and over. He uses them. It was exactly what someone would say to plant a seed of doubt, and also exactly what might be true. I had agreed to this after one long conversation. That was not nothing, but it was not everything. The next morning, I found a folder on the coffee table in the sitting room. Open. Not hidden. My full name at the top. My address. My employment history going back 4 years. Previous address. My sister's name. My sister's outstanding debt. My hands went cold. I called Nathan immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes. I held the folder up when he walked in and let him see my face before I said a single word. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You already knew who I was before the restaurant," I said. "This file existed before Tuesday." "Yes." He did not look away. He told me that 3 weeks before the restaurant, his security team had identified me in the CCTV footage from Kevin's phone call. I had been logged as a potential witness and a standard background file had been compiled, the same process used for anyone connected to an active investigation. "You were not targeted," he said. "You were identified. There is a difference." "Is there?" I said. "Yes." He leaned forward slightly. "Jade, I did not arrange Tuesday night. Kevin chose that restaurant. Kevin chose to humiliate you in front of a room full of people. I walked in and made a decision in the moment that was impulsive and unfair to you." He held my gaze. "But I have not lied to you since. And I will not." I looked at him for a long time. "Full information," I finally said. "Always. That was our agreement." "Yes." "Then tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning. All of it." His full name was Nathan Hahn J1. He had built Hahn Group starting at 24, after his father died leaving debts instead of anything useful, after 2 years of working jobs that were not so different from mine. By 38, he was worth more money than I could picture. None of that was what he told me that morning. What he told me was about Chairman Wu. Wu Sangchul was Nathan's uncle by marriage, his mother's older sister's husband. He had run the original Hahn Group for 11 years before Nathan, at 27, had restructured everything, bought out the old investors, and taken control. Wu had been removed with a settlement that was generous by most measures. Wu did not see it that way. For the past 18 months, Wu had been running a quiet takeover, shell companies, planted employees, proxy investors eroding Hahn Group's financial foundation from the inside. Kevin was one of those planted employees. The phone call Kevin made 6 weeks ago, Nathan said, contained the name of the central shell company. The account numbers. Enough to break the entire structure open. He looked at me. "And you were 2 feet away." I thought about that slow Tuesday afternoon. Table 6. A man I used to love, talking quietly on his phone while I refilled his water without looking at him. He knows someone was nearby, Nathan said. Wu does. His people have been searching for the witness for 5 weeks. They do not know it as yet. The air in the room changed. My sister, I said immediately, is safe. I have people watching her building since last night. I closed my eyes for exactly 3 seconds. When I opened them, something had settled in me. Not calm exactly. Something more like clarity. What do we do? I asked. Nathan's expression shifted forward, focused, decided. We stop reacting to their plan, he said. And we start running our own. I called my sister B that afternoon. She was 23, worked at a call center, carried a debt she was slowly working down, and was the only person alive who could tell when I was leaving things out. She picked up on the second ring. You sound weird, she said immediately. I'm fine, I said. You sound fine in a very weird way. I could not tell her everything, but I told her enough that I was involved in something complicated, that people might ask questions about me, that she should not open her door to strangers and should call me if anything felt wrong. Silence. Then, Jade, what have you gotten yourself into? Something I can handle, I said. But I need you to trust me. I always trust you, she said quietly. That's never been the problem. After I hung up, Sarah called me into the strategy room, which turned out to be a converted meeting space in Nathan's building, with screens and a whiteboard and 3 people I had not met yet. Sarah introduced herself properly this time. Not a presentation consultant. Head of Intelligence Operations for Han Group. The terrifying small woman was, when Nathan was not present, the most powerful person in any room she occupied. She explained the next phase. Clara, Kevin's girlfriend, the woman from the bathroom, was Wu's niece. She had been placed specifically to monitor Nathan through Kevin, feeding information back for months. Wu's people did not know Nathan's team was already aware of this. The plan, I would get close to Clara. Build what looked like friendship. Gather whatever I could. I thought about Clara at the mirror. The sharp intelligence behind the pleasant voice. The way she had mentioned my mother, not cruelly, just precisely, like a reminder of where I came from and what that meant. She's not entirely willing, I said slowly. She seemed uncomfortable. Like she was following instructions rather than acting from choice. Sarah looked at me with new attention. What makes you say that? Because I know that feeling, I said, better than almost anything. I was right about Clara. It took one real conversation to confirm it. We met for coffee 3 days after the gala. I made the approach seem casual, a coincidence near a place she was known to visit. Within 20 minutes, away from Kevin and away from performance, Clara was a different person. Quieter. More careful in the way people are careful when they have been carrying something heavy for a very long time. I did not pretend or play games. I laid a version of the truth on the table, that I knew she was connected to Wu, that I was not her enemy, and that I believed she was as much a pawn in this as anyone. She went very still. If I help you, she said carefully, and he finds out. We protect you, I said. That is a personal promise from me, not just from Nathan's team. She looked at me for a long moment, weighing the risk on one side against the exhaustion of carrying everything on the other. There are 3 documents, she said finally. In my uncle's private file. Founding papers for the shell companies. Account structures. His signature on all of them. That would be enough, I said. Do not tell Nathan where they came from. Not immediately. He will move too fast, and we will identify the leak before the documents are secured. Agreed, I said. She provided the copies within 48 hours. I kept my word and held them back for 3 days. But on the second day, Wu's people began hunting for a leak. They did not know it was Clara yet, but they were narrowing down fast. And I realized, with a cold feeling settling in my chest, that by bringing Clara in I may have placed another woman in the exact kind of danger I had promised to keep away from V. The pressure was building from all sides now. Nathan's phone buzzed while we were in the strategy room reviewing Clara's documents. He looked at the screen and something changed in his face. "Kevin just messaged you," he said. I picked up my phone. A long, careful message, not an apology, nothing so honest as that. Kevin framed it as concern. He had heard I was involved with Nathan Hahn, and he wanted to look out for me. He painted Nathan as someone who used people and walked away. He said he had information that could help me get out before it was too late. I read it twice. "He's panicking," Nathan said. "He's performing," I replied. He was always better at performing than at being real. Nathan looked at me carefully. "You could meet him." "I know. Sarah can wire you. If he says anything about Wu's legal strategy." I said I said. "I'll do it." We met Kevin the following afternoon at a neutral cafe. He was working very hard to look like a man driven by concern. I sat across from him and watched the performance and thought about everything I now knew that he did not know I knew. "Jade," he said earnestly, "Nathan Hahn is not who you think he is." "Tell me," I said. "Who is he?" Kevin leaned forward. And in the process of trying to convince me that Nathan was dangerous, he handed me exactly what I had come for. Wu had already initiated a legal action. A filing that would freeze Hahn Group's assets completely. It was set to move within 72 hours. I kept my face calm. I kept my voice easy. I ordered a second coffee I did not touch. Then I walked back to the building, straight to the strategy room, and interrupted everything. 72 hours, I said. And the room went into a different kind of motion entirely. Lawyers were called. Financial forensics was pulled weeks ahead of schedule. Clara's documents came out. I gave Sarah the full details of where they came from, because there was no longer time for careful sequencing. Clara was moved quietly to a secure location within the hour, the way Nathan's team moved when they had to go fast and leave no trace. In the middle of the controlled chaos, Nathan pulled me into the hallway outside the strategy room. For the first time since I had met him, he looked tired, not physically, but somewhere deeper. Like the weight of what he had been carrying had shifted and settled differently. "You don't have to stay for this part," he said. "This is going to become very public and very ugly. You signed on for 3 events and 30 days. You didn't sign on for a corporate war." I looked at him. "You pulled me in to look like your wife," I said. "You never told me to stop acting like it." Something moved across his face. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Tell me what you need." Then Sarah appeared in the doorway behind him. Her face was tight in a way I had not seen before. "We have a problem," she said. "Someone inside our legal team leaked the asset list to Wu's lawyers this morning." The hallway went very quiet. It was Thomas, Nathan's personal assistant of 6 years, present every morning before anyone else, last to leave every evening. Thomas, who had sat outside Nathan's office for 6 years and heard everything. When Nathan confronted him, Thomas did not deny it. He sat very straight and spoke in a flat, exhausted voice. 3 years earlier, Nathan had missed his father's funeral. Not out of malice, a major deal had been closing, the calls had come quickly, and by the time Nathan had registered what day it was already too late. He had sent a car. He had sent flowers. He had offered money that Thomas's family quietly accepted. But Thomas had been sitting with it ever since. The specific wound of being overlooked by someone who held enormous power. It had grown in the dark until it became something he could no longer see clearly. He had not meant for anyone to get hurt, he said. He thought he was simply giving Wu a small advantage. The room was very quiet after he finished. Nathan said nothing. I was the one who spoke. Your father deserved better than being missed, I said to Thomas. That is true. And what you did put real people in real danger. I held his gaze. But you still have a choice about what you do next. That choice belongs to you. Thomas looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at Nathan. I'll cooperate, he said quietly. Everything. Whatever you need. What he provided over the next 3 hours was not a small advantage. It was everything: internal communications between Wu and Kevin, dates, transfer amounts, direct instructions. A line of evidence that tied Wu's personal involvement to every stage of the scheme. The 72-hour clock was still running. But now we were ready. The legal filing went in with 40 minutes to spare. I was in the strategy room watching the screens when the submission was confirmed. One of the lawyers exhaled so hard it sounded like he had been holding his breath for a week. Then Wu responded, not through his lawyers, not through the courts. Through the media. Within 2 hours, a story appeared naming me. It called me a manufactured companion, a woman assembled to generate public sympathy, with no genuine connection to Nathan Hahn. It detailed my background, the restaurant, my neighborhood, my mother's old job. It called me a distraction and suggested the entire investigation had been engineered by a woman with a personal grudge against Kevin Marsh. It spread fast. My name began trending. People dug into my social media. Comments appeared about my appearance, my background, my mother's housekeeping work. I read them until my eyes burned. Then I put my phone face down. Nathan wanted to respond immediately. His PR team had a statement ready within 20 minutes. I put my hand on the table. Not yet, I said. Jade. They want you to defend me, I said. That keeps me as the story, the woman who needed someone to defend her. I looked at him. Let me answer for myself. Let them underestimate me one more time. He studied me. Then he stepped back. Your call, he said. I called the journalist myself. Her name was Amara, and I had spent 2 days researching her work before this week ended, her previous pieces, her record of accuracy, her willingness to let a subject speak without shaping the words for them. She answered on the second ring and agreed to meet within the hour. We sat in a quiet corner of a cafe, and I told her everything. Not Nathan's version, not the PR team's version, mine. The restaurant, Kevin's words, the whole room going still. The stranger who said 4 words that changed everything. The arrangement, honest and complete, including the parts that made me look like someone who had been used. What I had done, what I had learned, what I had decided. I did not make myself a hero. I said clearly that I had been approached because I was useful, that I had agreed because I was angry and because it was the right thing, and that somewhere in the middle of all of it I had become part of something far larger than I had understood at the start. The interview went live that evening. Women flooded the comments, not just for me, but sharing their own versions of the restaurant moment. The Tuesday night someone had made them feel small in front of a room full of people. The sentence designed to put them back in their place. It became a conversation that was no longer about Han Group's legal filing at all. And that, it turned out, was the most powerful thing that could have happened. By the next morning, Wu's lawyers had sent a cease and desist letter. Amara published it within the hour. Clara gave her formal testimony to investigators on a Thursday morning. Sarah told me afterward that she had been clear, detailed, and completely steady. She provided the founding documents, her witness account of conversations she had personally heard, specific dates and amounts that matched the financial forensics exactly. Wu's response came before the day ended. He held a short press conference and disowned Clara completely. He called her unstable. He released private family messages, things she had written in moments of vulnerability, things she had trusted to family, and let the public read them stripped of all context. I watched the footage on my laptop that evening and felt something tighten in my chest that was not quite anger and not quite grief. I was at her hotel door within an hour. She opened it, and I could see she had been crying, the kind that had stopped being active and settled into pure exhaustion. I did not say anything at first. I had brought food from a place she had mentioned once in passing, and I set it on the table and sat down on the small sofa. She sat in the chair across from me, and we were quiet for a while. Eventually she said, "I thought being part of a powerful family meant being protected." "I know," I said. "It just meant being useful until you weren't." I looked at her. "You were brave today," I said. "Not because you had nothing to lose. Because you did it anyway." She looked at the food. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, "the people who hurt you answer for it." Kevin's lawyers began cooperation negotiations quietly 3 days after the main filing. He wanted immunity from criminal prosecution in exchange for full cooperation. Nathan's team was divided. The senior lawyer wanted to make an example. Sarah wanted whatever closed the case fastest. Nathan asked me what I thought. The question surprised the room. I thought about the restaurant. The performance of it. Every face watching me stand there with a tray while Kevin turned my life into entertainment. Let him cooperate, I said. But not quietly. He makes a public statement, not legal language, not a corporate apology. Something real. A human statement about what he did and who he hurt. Nathan's lawyer started to object. Nathan held up one hand. "She's right," he said simply. Kevin's statement went out the following morning. It was short. It named Han Group. It named the people whose money had been moved. And near the end, in 2 careful sentences, it named the restaurant and it named me, not as a character in his story, but as a person he had treated carelessly and publicly and without justification. I read it at the kitchen counter with my coffee going cold. I did not feel triumphant. I felt something quieter, like a weight I had carried for 8 months had been set down, and I had not noticed the exact moment it left my hands. Then Wu made his last move. He released a story through an anonymous source to a financial outlet, not about the case, not about the evidence. About Nathan. A failed business at 27. A relationship that had ended badly. One decision in his early years that could be made to look like a pattern if you framed it carefully enough. None of it was illegal. All of it was designed to look like one. Nathan disappeared for 36 hours. No calls, no meetings, no responses. His team moved quietly around the absence. Sarah held the strategy room together with visible effort and said nothing about it to anyone. I found him on the second evening in his office with the lights low, sitting at his desk. Not working. Just sitting. I pulled up a chair on the other side without being invited. He looked at me. "You don't have to stay for this part," he said. For the second time. "You said that already," I replied. "I gave you my answer already." He was quiet. I could see what Wu had done, not just the public version of it, but the deeper damage. The past he had worked so hard to move beyond had been handed back to him in a headline and left on every screen. "The people trying to destroy you," I said slowly, "are using who you were. The people who care about you are sitting in front of who you are." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and called his lawyers. The full filing landed on a Friday morning, and it was the most comprehensive document I had ever seen. 3 years of financial forensics, Thomas's full cooperation, Clara's testimony and documents, the CCTV reconstruction from the restaurant with my memory of Kevin's phone call now professionally corroborated by the account records it had referenced. Everything aligned. Every piece connected to every other. Wu was formally charged on 4 counts. 2 co-conspirators were named alongside him. Kevin's cooperation locked the final pieces in place. The arrest footage played on the news that evening. Wu in a dark coat, very straight, very still, being guided into the back of a car outside his office. He did not look at the cameras. He had always been a man more comfortable watching than being watched. I sat in front of the television and watched until the segment ended. Then I turned it off and sat in the quiet. Somewhere in all of this, 3 families connected to Wu's shell companies had been defrauded of retirement money they would now be able to recover. Workers who had been cheated would see justice done. And it had all begun to unravel from a single conversation overheard by a woman refilling a water glass on a slow Tuesday afternoon. I thought about how small the moments are that change everything. How you can never know which one it will be. The 30-day arrangement ended on a Thursday. A document from Nathan's lawyer arrived in the morning, and a bank transfer followed with the quiet precision of everything else Nathan organized correctly, on time, without fanfare. I signed the completion paperwork at the kitchen table in the guest apartment. Then I moved my things back to my flat in 2 trips. He came to help with the second trip and did not ask too many questions, which meant she was storing them up. That evening she sat on my bed while I unpacked and watched me with the patient attention of someone who knows the thing you need to say will come when it is ready. "Are you okay?" she said eventually. "Yes," I said. "You look like someone who made a decision they're pretending was easy." I set a folded jumper on the shelf and did not answer. "Did you fall for him?" she asked. "It's complicated," I said. "That's a yes." B. Jade. I have known you your entire life. You do not do complicated. You do clear and careful and organized. She tilted her head. If it feels complicated, it is because you are scared. Not because it actually is. I turned to look at her. She shrugged. I'm just saying. That night my phone lit up on the nightstand. Nathan's name on the screen. I watched it through 3 rings. 4 rings. On the 5th, I picked up. "I didn't call about the case," he said immediately. A pause. Long enough to say everything neither of us had said yet. "I know," I replied. Another silence. "Then, can we talk?" "Not here, not the building. Somewhere normal." "Yes," I said. "I know a place." There was a small park near the old diner where I used to eat after late shifts, the kind of park that nobody goes to specifically, with 2 benches and a looping path around a patch of grass and a single old tree that had been there long enough to matter. I had eaten many meals alone on those benches after shifts that went on too long, watching the street lights come on one by one. We met there the next evening. Nathan arrived in a plain jacket, no driver visible, though I suspected his security were nearby because that was simply how he operated. He sat down on the bench. I sat beside him. We looked at the tree. Then we told each other the truth. He said the file with my name had started as professional assessment and somewhere become something he read because he wanted to know more about me. He said the wife comment in the restaurant had been impulsive not because he lost himself, but because something in him had responded before his thinking caught up. He said he did not know what to do with that because he was very good at making decisions and very poor at explaining the ones that did not come from calculation. I said I had been afraid of him for the first 2 weeks. That I had been waiting for the moment he showed what he actually wanted, because everyone always wanted something. I said the moment I stopped waiting was the moment he stepped back and said your call and actually meant it. I meant it, he said. I know, I said. That was the problem. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want, he asked. Not from the arrangement. Not from any of this. What do you actually want? It was the question nobody asked. The one I had stopped expecting. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Amara, the journalist. Jade, she said when I picked up. You need to see something that just dropped. About Nathan. Something we released before his lawyers could shut it down. What is it? His company, she said. Han Group. They acquired a property portfolio 8 months ago. One of the buildings in that portfolio is the restaurant where you work. He owns the building, Jade. Your restaurant is being demolished in 60 days. The park went very quiet around me. I lowered the phone slowly. Nathan was watching my face and he already saw it. Whatever he expected this conversation to become, the expression he found was not it. You own the building, I said. He did not pretend not to understand. Yes. For 8 months. Yes. You knew the restaurant was closing. Yes. I stood up from the bench. Not in anger. Anger was too hot for what I was feeling. This was colder and more precise. At what point, I said carefully, did I become someone whose life you make decisions about instead of someone you make decisions with? He had no good answer. He did not try to construct one. He offered to halt the development, to keep the restaurant open indefinitely, to restructure whatever needed restructuring. No, I said. And I meant it. Because I had a better idea. And this time I did not need his permission for any part of it. I negotiated directly with his property team, using everything I had learned over 30 days at Nathan's side. How to enter a room. How to make a case hold. How to know what you are worth to a conversation and what you are not willing to give away. The proposal I put on the table was detailed and completely mine, a community dining space in the ground floor of the new development. Proper wages. Ownership stakes for the staff. A program supporting women coming out of survival-level work, training, a path forward, a beginning that was more than just another shift at another table. Partly grant-funded. Partly from Han Group's community budget, which I had learned was currently underused. The restaurant would close. Something better would open. Nathan's team approved the proposal in 2 days. I heard about it through the property manager. Not from Nathan, which told me he had let it be mine completely. The closing day came. Mr. Bello cried a little. Priya photographed every table. I worked the last section, cleared the last plates, and turned off the last light. 3 months later, the new space opened. I stood at the door on the morning of the soft launch, not in the black uniform I had worn for years, not in borrowed silk chosen by someone else, but in something I had picked out myself, in a color I liked. Standing straight the way Sarah had taught me and meaning it the way she had always said I eventually would. The staff arrived one by one. Women who were at the beginning of something, the way I had been. We opened the doors. Customers came through slowly at first, then steadily. The space was warm and well lit, with food that had been designed by a chef I had found myself and hired myself after 3 weeks of tastings and conversations. The tables had been arranged the way I liked them, not too close together, enough breathing room that people felt like themselves while they ate. By midday the dining room was almost full. By early afternoon, a woman at table 4 told Grace, our newest waitress, 4 days on the job and already finding her footing, that the food was the best she had eaten in months. Grace smiled the way I used to smile before I had learned to mean it. Nathan came in last. Just him, no jacket, no entourage, as close to ordinary as I had ever seen him, which for Nathan Hahn still meant he walked in a way that made people glance over. He crossed the room without looking at the other tables and sat down at the one by the window. Grace approached with the menu. He smiled at her and said he would wait for the owner. I was standing near the service station, watching the room, when I saw her go back to tell me. I smoothed the front of my jacket. I walked across the dining room, not quickly, not nervously, at the pace of someone who knew exactly where she was going in a space that belonged entirely to her. I pulled out the chair across from Nathan Hahn and sat down. We looked at each other across the table. All of it was there between us, the weeks of it, the complication and the honesty and the moments when everything could have gone differently and didn't. The moments when I had almost walked away and chosen not to. The moment in the hallway when he had said your call, and the moment in the park when the ground had shifted completely. And the argument that still sat between us, real and unresolved, because I had not forgiven the building situation cleanly and he knew it, and because real things between real people do not resolve themselves just because something beautiful comes after them. Welcome, I said. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Nathan Hahn laughed. Really laughed, open and unguarded and full. The laugh of someone who had finally set something down that they had been holding for a very long time. I looked at him across that table in my own space, in my own life, on my own terms. And I thought, this is what going somewhere looks like. I thought about the restaurant on that Tuesday night. The plates balanced in my hands. The sound of the door opening. The voice I had not known yet that would change everything about what happened next. I thought about standing with my notepad in a silent room and not knowing what to do, and how I had found out, piece by piece, decision by decision, what I was made of. I thought about B, who had sat on my bed and told me the truth I already knew but was not ready to say. About Clara, who had been brave on the worst day of her life in a room full of people who were watching. About Thomas, who had made a wrong choice and then made a right one. About Sarah, who had stood behind me at a mirror on the second morning and said, "Stop shrinking." I was not shrinking. I was sitting at my own table, in my own space, in the life I had built out of the wreckage of the worst night I had ever had. And if Kevin Marsh could see me now, if he walked past this window and looked in and saw me exactly here, exactly like this, I hoped it would mean something to him. Not revenge. Something quieter than that. A reminder that the people you dismiss have somewhere to go after you dismiss them. That going nowhere is sometimes just what going somewhere looks like from the outside, before you get there. I did not need him to understand that. It was enough that I did. Nathan was still looking at me. There was a question in his expression that he had not yet learned how to ask directly, which, for a man who was almost always direct, meant that it was the most important one. I picked up the small card from the center of the table. The name of the space, in clean dark lettering, second step. Because the first step is surviving, and the second is everything after. Ready to order? I asked. He smiled. Take your time, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Neither was I. If this story kept you here until the very last line, you already know what this channel is about. We tell stories about people who were counted out and refused to stay that way. Stories about the moment everything changes, about the choice you make when nobody is watching, about what it costs to build something real from the ground up. Before you go, drop your city and country in the comments right now. I read every single one and I want to know where in the world this story found you today. And if you are not subscribed yet, please do it right now. The next story is already coming, and it is the kind that will stop you mid-scroll and keep you here until the end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying. See you in the next one.